This is the Yorkshire Business Woman podcast, supporting, inspiring and promoting women in business.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Yorkshire Business Woman podcast of this month, and it's a bit of a takeover this time. We're going to have a bit of fun for the next half hour. I'm Christine Talbot. I'm a television presenter and broadcaster, and I am very privileged to be part of a group of women who are doing something pretty special. So we decided to come along today down to the This Is Distorted studios in Leeds, and we were invited by Yorkshire Business Woman to tell you all about it. So with me today are three women who I have the privilege of calling my friends. They are Annie Stirk, Rachel Peru and Bernadette Gledhill, and they're all women who've achieved a great deal in their lives in all sorts of different areas. We're going to hear a lot more about all that in just a moment, but they and I are also women who have reached a stage in our lives in which we're all facing challenges, sometimes tough challenges, and learning how to navigate this stage, this midlife stage of our lives. And it was while having coffee, because we used to get together, and we still do get together regularly for coffees, that we realised that we are not alone, that we've a lot to share. And that led us to thinking about ways of creating a new platform which is designed to help and support not just each other, but women all over Yorkshire, all women at this stage of their lives, and how to really get the most out of our lives. And it's a time really we realise that a lot of women, and you will obviously as listeners, you might share that view too, you feel the best is behind you, but we're here to tell you that it certainly is not. So we created Find Your Midlife Magic. I'm delighted to say that Yorkshire Business Woman organisation is one of our media sponsors and offered us the chance to have one of our coffee get-togethers here in the Distorted studios and share our coffee half hour with you listeners. So get yourselves a cuppa, everybody at home, and sit back and enjoy. I'm going to first of all introduce a few of us today. Annie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your life has been like so far?
Well, I'm actually 73, so I'm probably I've done midlife and a little bit beyond as well. But I've worked in food for most of my life. I was a teacher, a lecturer, demonstrator initially, home economics teacher, and then somehow found myself in the dizzy world of media, and it was quite by chance, really. And I think that's probably underscores my life, really, because a lot of things that have happened have actually been quite by chance. Some luck, some kind of hustling away for things. But yeah, I worked in radio and television and was a food stylist for many years. For This Morning for 5 years. So I trundled across to Liverpool for 5 years and had a whale of a time. Pinched myself every day. I arrived at the Albert Dock in my car.
Was Richard and Judy, was it their days?
It was Richard and Judy's days,
yeah,
yes, it was,
them.
yeah. And they were really heady days because the programme was... it was the first of its kind, really. And the sort of items that they used to do were just, really kind of, they hadn't been done before. And a lot of brave stuff, brave creativity went on. And it was fantastic to be part of it. So I sort of arrived at the studio, never having worked in television, never done anything to do with television. And it was just like, oh my God, how did this happen? And I was on a 6-week trial because I'd actually accepted a year's contract at York College, and to be a food lecturer. And then I'd actually I'd got in touch with This Morning. To say, can I come and be, a TV cook? I mean, the impudence of it, really. To sort of, kind of little old me Yorkshire girl, cookery teacher, having the impudence to ask that. Anyway, they kept, when they say they keep your file, you keep your information on file. Anyway, they did. Funnily enough, and I just got a random call from one of the producers to say they were looking for a home economist and a food stylist for the show, and would I fancy going along for a chat? So I went along for a chat. Long story. That they wanted me to take sort of ideas for the programme, all the food items right up until Christmas for Susan Brooks, who was the cookery presenter. So I did all that, and they offered me the job kind of there and then, but it was a 6-week trial, and I said, well, I'm sorry, but that's really difficult for me to take because I've got a year's contract on offer. And I think they probably thought, yeah, well, there's the door then. And they said, well, it's you might not like us, we might not like you, take it or leave it. So I just
took it.
I took it, yeah. And had a very difficult conversation with the college. But that led to a lot of things. And I think that's the point of Midlife Magic, really, because once doors open up for you, it's amazing how other doors then just gradually open up, and they might not be what you think you want, but there might be opportunities that are far better. Than you think.
And also, I mean, you're also a mum, you've got a grandson, and you also changed career completely at the age of 70 and became a model.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that again was a chancy thing. It was a sort of wet, windy February afternoon, and there was, we all scroll through Facebook, don't we? And the rest. And there was an advert saying, fancy being a model, no experience required, like as if. So I sent a photo in, and it was not, I won't say scam, but it was one of these photo agencies where they get you along on the pretext of telling you that you're gorgeous, and actually all they want is 150 quid to take some photographs of you. So I fell for it, hook, line and sinker. Went along for the photographs, but actually the photographs opened doors. Yes. And gradually, and then I got in touch with York Fashion Week, met Rachel. We started Silver and Sassy together because obviously we've both got silver hair, and we wanted to do something to support and empower women with grey, silver and white hair. And we put on the most amazing event, didn't we, Rachel?
Yeah, it was fabulous.
It was fantastic. Really, really humbling event. And you obviously
I hosted it and had a great time. I was very honoured.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it was.
And you were there,
I watched
Bernadette.
it, yes, and it was brilliant seeing all those amazing women together.
And that
in
was
one
one
room.
of the seeds, really, that started what we're doing today, doesn't it? Let me bring in Rachel now. Rachel, your story. I mean, you've also had a massive change of directions in your life, and you're branching out in so many different ways. You've got a new podcast that you've just recently launched off the back of one that you've been doing for a while. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I think I listening to Annie, I'd call myself a late bloomer because I feel like I've done things back to front. I didn't have a lot of confidence in my 20s and 30s, so I really struggled to say yes to life and really didn't. I held myself back for so long, and it wasn't till I did get divorced in my 40s, and that seems to be a catalyst for me personally. So I went on this whole kind of voyage of self-discovery. I went to university, got a degree in education studies at Leeds Trinity, which I loved being a mature student, thought I would be doing teaching now, and life has a funny way of throwing you in a different direction, and once you do have confidence, then you do start saying yes to things. So when I got the opportunity I started volunteer modelling for Macmillan Ilkley Fashion Show. They have it annually. Said yes to that. Never done anything like that before. Absolutely terrified. Came off the catwalk and I absolutely loved it. I couldn't wait to go again.
Yes.
So I volunteered and did that for about 6 years. And it was during that time there were a couple of professional models involved. They were super encouraging and saying, listen, you seem really natural at this. Have you thought about modelling? I hadn't. But then once somebody said that to me, I thought, well, actually, why not? So I was 46 at the time. So I decided to send off really basic images across the country to model agencies and got assigned to the London agency.
Wow.
So that marked this whole new career path for me that I never would have done when I was younger.
And you recently launched a new podcast, haven't you? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started Out of the Bubble podcast in 2018, and it was, for me, Out of the Bubble was very much, I've lived in Ilkley all my life, and it is a beautiful place to live, but sometimes can feel like you're living in a small town. It's like a bubble. And for me, I'd stepped out of my comfort zone in my 40s, so it represented that kind of period of time. And now I'm in my 50s, I feel so much freer, and I've got so much more confidence, and I'm really excited about the future. That Out of the Bubble didn't really seem to fit. It felt like actually that was holding me back. So the new branding is Liberty Free to Be, because I talk to so many women in the 50s that are doing amazing things, and 60s and 70s that are redefining what this stage of life is, and I think that's really exciting. So I've interviewed 135 women so far.
Gosh.
I've now got a blog where they can share their stories. So it's really an empowering platform where it's real life stories of women that we can all relate to, which I absolutely love doing.
Yes, yeah. Well, I've known Bernadette for many years. We used to work together on the Tonight programme.
We did, on Calendar Fashion.
Nearly
when I was
30 years
modelling.
ago.
A long time ago.
And
yeah.
we did so much together. But obviously I've seen you over the years, and you haven't changed a single bit. And you're still
That's
working.
really kind.
You're still working as hard as ever and doing all
Well,
sorts of things.
Yes, I mean, I think that's part of what we're all about, really, the midlife magic. I think it's about keeping yourself really busy, because I think if you stop, particularly in the areas of work that we've all worked in, if you stop, I think, well, what would I do? It's just become sort of a way of life, really. When I left school at 18, I studied beauty for a year, and then I went into the fashion and beauty industry. It all sort of, none of it was planned, I have to say. Everything just seemed to happen, really. And then I started modelling when I was about 19 and got a London agency when I was 20, which back in those days, over 40 years ago, I'm in my 60s now, over 40 years ago, was quite a big thing, really, to go from a small village in Yorkshire to start modelling for an agency in Old Bond Street. So that was huge. But again, probably like Rachel said, I used to be quite shy, lacking in confidence. And I think this sort of industry really, it helps. It really brings that sort of, side out of you that you have got to push yourself out a little bit more and become more confident. Following on from that, then I started with the company I worked with in those days. I started doing a lot of training in self-confidence, model coaching. And that was a huge part of my career, really, training lots of girls and boys as well, mainly from sort of teens up to probably early 20s. I mean, back in those days, I think modelling, it's changed so much, and it's changed for the better. I think we probably all agree with that. There's so much diversity involved now. Whereas when I first modelled, it was very stereotypical, 5'9", 5'10", size 10. Everybody was very much the same. Whereas the great thing now is that models can be all ages, all sizes, and there's sort of no barriers anymore. And I think that's a huge thing that's come out of the last 40 years. But when I was doing the training, it's quite funny because obviously the girls used to come along or the boys used to come along, and the mothers of the boys or girls used to always say to me, why isn't there anything like this for our age? And of course, I'd probably only be in my 20s and 30s at that time. And we used to just all smile about it, never think about it. But when I started then to get to sort of 40s, 50s and now 60s, you realise that, there's so many women out there who want to know all these tips and tricks and how do I look good and where do I buy clothes from and how do I do my makeup in line with, the current trends and things. So I think what we're all doing really sort of ticks all those boxes, and I think it's something I become much more familiar with as I've got that bit older. But then, of course, I went into fashion events, so organising fashion shows, obviously around Yorkshire, but around the country as well. And then in COVID, of course, everything went. So no events, no fashion shows. And that's when, a few years ago, I actually fell back into modelling again and doing classic modelling. So recently I did a couple of catwalk shows, which I always did when I was young. That's what I specialised in, really, catwalk work. And I feel as though my life's done a huge circle. I feel as though it's come all the way round. But great. I'm so happy to be doing all these different things in my 60s.
Yes, yeah.
And so happy that we've all got together and that we can start passing on things that we've all learned over the decades, really.
It is. And I think, but one of the things that we all did learn when we were getting together was that we were all sort of facing new challenges, new situations in our lives that were having quite an impact on us, weren't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, in my case, caring for an elderly mum who's lovely but frail, and she's more and more dependent upon me. I was finding I was a presenter of Calendar for many years. Loved that job very much. I'm the one among us who's not a model, as we can tell when we do our social media stuff. But I am a journalist and presenter, but and that's still intrinsic to me. And I wanted to find a way of carrying on working and doing all the things and saying yes to opportunities, but actually having a bit more flexibility in my life. And I did think, well, this is something that particularly affects women of our age. I mean, it's not you've got a lot of caring responsibilities, Annie. For you look after your grandson quite a lot. You support your daughter Sarah, who's a Sky Sports presenter, and you're very much there for her. I know, Rachel, you also have an elderly mum, and Bernadette, you've suffered tremendous loss recently. You lost your husband,
which obviously is quite emotional to talk about, but I have to talk about it because it's things that at our age that we all go through. So yes, I lost Robert to pancreatic cancer last November, and it's been quite a journey. However, he would want me to carry on. I know he would absolutely want me to carry on doing all the things I'm doing. And I feel as though I've been very blessed to be surrounded by all of you and to be doing what we're doing. And also it has made me realise how fortunate I am to have so much going on in my life, because I've done some bereavement counselling, met lots of other ladies in a similar position. And some of those ladies don't have they have friends and family, but they don't have the interest and the things that I'm throwing myself into. I've probably said yes too often over the last 7 months. I know I've definitely over-yesed, and everybody kept saying to me, Bernadette, don't say no, just keep saying yes, because then people will keep inviting you and you'll keep doing things. So there have been days when I've struggled, when I've said yes and I've thought, I've got to do this, I've got to get through this. But I've just had to face up to it. It's been very tough, but thank goodness that what I'm involved with and the opportunities I have, I think it's been my saviour, really.
But I think what you're summing up as well is something that is more prevalent at our stage of life. We're going to suffer loss of loved ones.
Yes.
In your case, in the most devastating way, Bernadette.
It was just 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There's never a good time for anyone. Some people going through looking after people for months and years, and mine was, I think a lot of mine initially was shock because we didn't know Robert was ill, and it was literally 3 weeks, from start to the end. So for the first 3 months, I couldn't do anything at all, just nothing. However, as I say, all of these wonderful things in my life, I'm sure he'll be looking down and be quite proud.
I'm sure he would.
Be quite proud.
I have no doubt he would.
I'm sure he will. And I keep. And one thing I have to say is, because we'd all been meeting for coffees for well over a year, he was really thrilled about what we were all doing, and he did know about it. And it's something I think, oh gosh, he would be so loving seeing all the press coverage we've had and all the things we're doing and all the support we're getting.
Yes, it
so,
is.
Yes,
but that's what I think is so important at this stage of our lives. And I think women need to hold each other up and lift each other up. And I think that's why having groups of women together, girlfriends, and what we're trying to do with our event that we're putting on in October is getting women together to all lift each other, hold each other up, support each other, and make it. We're going to laugh. We're going to probably laugh, cry,
yes.
and that's what we do here. So we want to take that really out, and that's the idea of Find Your Midlife Magic is to offer this platform of support, a feeling that you're not alone. Exactly what you've just described, in that your girlfriends are doing for you and we're hopefully doing with you.
Yes.
And all of us are doing
so.
in our own ways with our caring responsibilities, but also trying to navigate having some fun, and also not being defined by our ages. And I think that's a problem for me. I mean, if you'd say to me, what does finding a midlife magic mean to you? To me, it probably means, I don't think that any of us should be defined by the number on your birth certificate. No. I think, why should someone say to me, I noticed when I left calendar, people expected me to just stop work altogether. And I was constantly getting, I thought you'd retired. And I'm thinking, well, no, I never intended retiring. I still want to do lots and lots of interesting things, and lots of things have come along which have been great. But I certainly didn't see myself as having to, because I'm a certain age, because I'm 60, I'm suddenly have to stop altogether, put my slippers on and mow the lawn and do a bit of gardening.
Exactly.
But I think that's what I love about all of you, is that is not the case with any of us. We don't see that. And I think that's the message we want to get out there. There's always, I look like the way society does label us all, at whatever stage of life we're in. You're too young for this, or you're too old for this, or you're not experienced enough in this. Well, we're not too young or too old. Life is an open book for all of us. And that's, I think, what we want to get across to all our ladies who hopefully will follow us and maybe listening to this today. What does it mean to you, Annie?
Well, it's funny. I was just laughing about the retirement thing, because I remember I got my first office when I was 60, and I actually felt really guilty about it, because prior to that, people had been saying to me, you'd meet friends and acquaintances and kind of in the supermarket and shopping and stuff, and they say, how have you retired yet? When are you going to retire? And I'm thinking, do I look terrible today? Is that why they're asking me?
You don't feel it, do you?
No. And I just thought, oh dear. So then you start thinking, well, should I be retiring? Kind of. And then you ask yourself the question, and you just and it's wrong, really, isn't it? You've just exactly put your finger on it, Christine, saying that, to be defined, by other people as well, who have expectations of what you should be doing. And actually, it's not about that at all, is it? And when I got the office, I got chance of an office on a little business park in Stillington. And I remember going through the most awful kind of guilt, because I'd worked freelance in my back bedroom, sort of for all these television shows and production companies. And it had worked, but it had just got unmanageable. So this chance came up for this little office space, which was essentially not much bigger than my back bedroom, but it was an office, and it felt,
and it was yours,
felt grown up. And I just thought, it was great. But then people were saying, will you be able to afford it? Is it the right thing to do? Haven't you always managed okay in your back bedroom? Well, I think it's nice working at home. And I was thinking, dear. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? So I think you've got to have a bit of self-belief as well in wanting to change things. But I also think I agree about the support as well, because we do need to hold each other up, and we do need to, help other women and friends to know that it's okay to feel that you want more out of life at this stage of your life, because there is so much more. And yes, kind of my situation, we've got 3 grown-up teenage grandchildren, and Sarah our daughter had been in a long relationship, and then she has little Milo, who's 18 months old, as a single mum through IVF. So, it's been fantastic to go through all that with Sarah, but also, aware that, you have, at this stage of our lives, we've got to hold on to the years as well, and make space and time for us,
and make the
most of it, and have some fun. So I think it's about supporting each other to not have the guilt, to realise that it's okay to do things, and it doesn't always have to be big stuff, does it?
No. And it doesn't have to be work related.
No,
you
don't.
At all. In many ways, you might decide work's the last thing you want to do. You want to embrace the joys of life and doing lots of things,
Yes.
travelling. I know that that's something that you're embracing at the moment, Rachel.
Yeah, very much. And I think it's about that reconnecting with yourself, because I think the middle years, you can, especially if you've got a family, for instance, you get lost and you're so preoccupied by making sure that everybody else is all right. And for me, I've got 3 kids now. My youngest has just finished university. It's that, I know there's the empty nest, but it's that chance to, well, what can I do next? I've got that freedom to discover what do I like to do when I've got some free time.
Yeah.
What does light me up? And it's that word guilt that I think women particularly really struggle with. They feel guilty for allowing their time.
They do. And I do think, and I know, it's controversial, but I do think society tries to make women feel a bit invisible.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And there's always that, whether it be sexism and ageism, or, along the way, or you're an old hag, or you're treated like a bimbo or whatever, and that you get that attitude sometimes. But also, I think there's that trying to fit us all into a box. Yeah. You should not be doing this because you're a woman of a certain age, and you should just go away and do a bit of knitting or just look after the rest of us all the time. So society puts that pressure on us, and really it's wrong to do that, and I think we should fight back against
that's
that.
what drives me, I think.
Yeah.
There's a bit of there's a bit of devil in it. And you think, so, you know what can I do that's going to shock somebody? Because and then next week I'm performing a live burlesque show, and I'm 53. I'm absolutely petrified, and just saying it out loud makes me feel a bit sick, but but it is that
this girl.
It's that stepping out of the box that society tries to put us in and fighting against that.
Yes, and I think that's what we're all about, really, as well. As well as like ideas and ways of making the most of yourself. It's also just saying to you, you are free. As you say with your podcast, you're free to be whatever you want, whether you want to write your first novel, in your 70s, if you want to travel the world and see new things. It doesn't have to be, you've got to carry on working or anything like that, unless you want to. Yeah. And that's what I think we're about. What about you, Bernadette?
Well, I think one great thing is, because obviously, we're all doing very similar things in different ways, but I think when you put things out, whether it's on Instagram or when people actually reply or send you messages saying, "Oh, this is so inspirational, thank you, and you've given me a push to do other things, and when I see what you're doing, it makes me feel that I should do more with my life." And I think that's very much what we're trying to get across, isn't it, to the ladies that we're going to be talking to, and our guests are going to be talking to. And somebody did say to me, I don't know whether it was in fun or not, but she said, "So when does midlife end?" So I said,
At the end of life.
In my case, it's never going to end, because I'm just going to remain midlife.
What would the next phase be from midlife?
Well, I decided
Old life?
I thought the options were not too great, so I thought, I'll just say midlife. But I think the other thing as well that I find about, quite a lot of the things that I've been doing, I think it's great that we all work with a lot of younger people as well, because I think that keeps you very young. It keeps you on your toes a little bit. You might get new tips from them. Or we were just chatting earlier, Christine, about how the industry's changed and how, we're all sort of, if I've got to be there, I've got to be on time, I've got to be professional. And I think the one thing about certainly the industry, the modelling industry, young people now, they're so relaxed about it, aren't they? It's not I don't find it as stressful as it was when I was quite young.
Yes.
There's just such a lovely relaxed, and they don't take things very seriously, do they? And I think that's something probably at our age that I learned from that. And think, why did I ever used to worry about little things like that? And it's lovely to be in our time of life when we can suddenly be quite relaxed. We're learning from them.
I think that's it. I think we were the generation that felt you had to have it all, didn't we? We felt the pressure to have careers, to have homes, families, everything that was supposed to be the ideal, and strive to the point where you don't let yourself relax, really. And I think our generation are like that. I think I've got a daughter of 25, and that she's I just want to be happy.
And great, fantastic.
I know you've got to pay the bills, and you've got to have to say, well, actually, you've got to pay the bills and you've got to have a job and all those. But I've noticed that with a lot of the younger generation, they're very much more focused on well-being and mental well-being as well as health well-being, and we. Perhaps the blend of the two, you do have to work or at least have something coming your way rather than bank of mum and dad. But you do also have to focus more on yourself, and I think we're learning to do that, and we're learning to do that together. That's what we're trying to to share, isn't it?
Yes,
and
it is.
in a time really when women almost to be, I know, there's even a move really to kind of, well, the word woman is almost like people are getting into trouble for even using it these days. I think that's a great shame. That's a great shame. And, what we're trying to just say is we are women, and we're women of a certain age, and we actually want to enjoy and make the most of life, and this is what we're going to try and help everyone do. So we've got our event, haven't we, coming up
we
on.
have.
Do you want to tell us about it, Bernadette? No?
Well, shall I talk about the competition side? Because
Yes.
of course we ran a competition where we have tickets to go for 2 people to have a complete makeover, and I think obviously we haven't judged the competition yet.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be very, very tough because all those wonderful letters have come in from ladies from actually around the country when I had a little flick through this week, from all over, all different ages, obviously from mid-40s up to, I think,
70s, 80s,
yeah, which is fabulous. But it's quite interesting that a lot of the people in the letters have all said similar things, that, they feel as though they've lost the way. They feel, we were talking about the word invisible. They feel as though they don't know which way to go anymore. They don't know what to do with their look So again, I think it's sort of back to the things we were talking about earlier. So we've got this great makeover where Andrew Barton, celebrity hair stylist, is going to come in and give a complete new look.
On the day of the event
On the
in
day
October.
of the event.
Yes.
So obviously we'll introduce the ladies at the beginning of the day and then bring them back with their whole new look at the end of the day. But I mean, hair is such a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really
I
is.
think it's
Massive,
one
yeah.
of the things that really gives somebody a huge burst of confidence once they've had a completely new look. And then, of course, courtesy of our wonderful John Lewis in Leeds, we've got the personal stylist Chris, who is going to work with us on giving the ladies a complete new look.
Yes.
And then the makeup department in John Lewis to give them a whole new makeup look as well. So hopefully we'll bring them completely up to date with the style of life that they're wanting to achieve the look for.
Yes.
And they then, of course, walk away at the end of the day with their great hair and the outfit that would have been selected for them by John Lewis.
And hopefully
they
feeling
go away
inspired.
and hopefully leaving us
Yes.
on the day
So that's
feeling great.
the idea. Obviously, it's a whole day's event, isn't it, Rachel?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what we've got a lot happening, focusing on all sorts of different areas, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really kind of bumper packed day, isn't it? And it's not just us
Huge,
talking.
yeah.
We've got some amazing guests joining us. We've got somebody like Manraj Sangira, who sadly lost her son just at the beginning of lockdown. He'd been ill for a long time. And whilst it's still very raw, her journey since then, she's been very open about it. She's gone on to do some amazing things. Last month, she was speaking in the House of Lords. She's doing a lot of work for charities. She's just taking life by the throat and really going for it. And we can all learn a lot from all these stories. And I think there'll be different stories, will have different bits that people can relate to.
Yes.
Because, what she's struggled through, somebody might be able to relate to that about losing another member of the family. And so I think we'll all learn so much from one another whilst being able to give her the kind of support that she needs as well. So I think these stories that we need to share
Yes.
that are going to really make a difference.
So it's the stories, it's the personal challenges that we're talking about, but also beauty, hair, hormones, health.
Yeah.
We have Dr. Jane Gilbert with us, who's an expert particularly on the menopausal and older years, and she can talk about, what you should be eating, what you should supplements you should be taking. So we're looking at that as
I'll
well.
be taking notes on that one.
Yeah, we
She's going to be fantastic.
We're going to love that.
And we've got Lisa Clifford, haven't we, Annie?
Yeah, I met Lisa Clifford. We did radio slots together. We did the Saturday morning papers on BBC Radio York for a number of years. And we always had a laugh and got on. And she told me a bit about her background, and then I got to know her more. And she did a firewalking course that Rachel and I both attended, didn't we?
We did.
At Hazelwood Castle. And she's one of these really inspiring, we're using the word inspired and inspiring a lot today, but she is a really inspiring woman who, when she talks to you, she listens intently and she takes what you say, and she really understands how you feel and what makes you tick. And so we're really lucky to have her, Lisa Clifford, along as our sort of one of our keynote speakers on the day. So Lisa's going to open the day up. And Lisa, I mean, I think anybody in that situation has come to it from a fair amount of difficulties themselves. They face a lot of challenges in their own personal life, which enables them to stand up in front of a group and talk to a group in a very inspiring, empowering way. And Lisa does that through what she says, but also she is a trained firewalker. So we're not going to be firewalking.
We're not telling everyone they're going to firewalk.
No,
we don't have to do that.
So you don't have to do that.
Thank you.
But it's but she teaches confidence through firewalking. So I mean, like Rachel and I thought, didn't we? We thought, oh God, I can't do that.
Yes.
It looks hot.
Yeah.
I burned my feet, and it was hot, and it was.
We did it.
But we did it. Yeah, and that the session led up to giving us confidence and empowering us, and we did it. And we had lots of keywords, didn't we? And then there was something called an arrow break, which, this part of your throat here is one of the most vulnerable parts of your body. And she what part of the session, wasn't it, was to put the point of the arrow here. And it's quite long and bendy, and Lisa stands opposite you with the other end of the arrow and the pointy bits here. And she says, right, walk towards me. And actually, I mean, I found it difficult to get it. The session was, there were about 100 people there. Yeah. And I struggled to get up. You went up quite soon, didn't you, Rachel?
Yeah, I wanted to get it over and done with it.
But I was a chicken. I thought, well, if Rachel's doing it, I'm doing it. I'm not going to be the one who doesn't do it. But I was really quite scared. I thought, oh God, what if I'm the one who...
I'd be thinking that too.
Who gets garroted?
I'll be the one in 100 that it doesn't work.
But how did you feel afterwards?
Well, I felt fantastic because I just thought, God, and then you do the firewalk. But it is all about mindset and confidence.
Yes.
But you do need somebody to instill that confidence in you, and Lisa can do that. And I remember just because I went to a Catholic school, and we used to have these retreats, and once we had this is going off piece a little bit, but we had a priest there, a monk, I think, who did this retreat for the day. And I just remember he was so inspiring. I still remember him now. I can't really remember much about what he said, but I just remember I didn't want the day to end. I felt really flat when the day ended. Flat but inspired, because he had buoyed everybody up so much. And I think that's what keynote speakers will do. That's what Lisa will do. She will buoy us all up and give us the confidence to think, do you know what? All that stuff that's been bubbling away in my head that I'm just blooming well going to go and do it because I can.
Yes. Well, that I'm so looking forward to hearing.
That sounds amazing.
And she's doing the arrow thing as well, isn't she? So
Yes.
I wonder if we'll have. I might have to work up the courage. Well, I keep telling myself I will.
We're the only two members now, Christine.
No, you've got to do it.
So
We've got to take one for the team, haven't we?
We'll have to complete it, won't we?
Yeah. Well, our other special guest is the wonderful Gaynor Fay, actor. You will all know Gaynor, Emmerdale, Fat Friends, Band of Gold, obviously the daughter of the wonderful writer Kay Mellor, who we lost just over a year ago. And Gaynor has agreed to come along and chat to us as well, hasn't she, about her life now, the challenges that she's facing, because she's also, in midlife. She has children university, just starting out in the career. She's obviously lost her mum. She's caring very much a support to her dad, Anthony, and but also taking on all of the work that her mum, the legacy of her mum at Roland Productions. And so she's going through a very difficult, tough time. And when I asked her would she like to come. She said that sounds totally my cup of tea.
Brilliant.
So she's coming along to talk to us about her life and how she's navigating this stage of life as well. I think that a lot of people will be very interested to hear what she has to say. So we've a lot to look forward to, haven't we?
We have.
Absolutely.
We really have.
It's going to be very exciting, and obviously anyone that wants to come and join us, we'd love to see you there. You need to get your tickets if you want them from Goldsborough Hall website. There's a link, and we'll put the link, I think, at the bottom of this podcast as well. So any final thoughts before we say goodbye? Do you all feel that what are you really looking forward to getting out of the day? If you could sum it up maybe in just a few words.
I'm looking forward to somebody coming up to me and saying, thank you, I'm going to go and do whatever it is they want to do, because I know there'll be light bulb moments where people think, actually, do you know what, I'm going to try starting a new class or doing something different. That's what I want
I
to
think
hear.
it's the inspirational side of it. And I think, and as well, as we've said earlier, just for people to come along, share stories as groups as well, and have lots of fun. And definitely, like Rachel, to go away feeling inspired by whatever part of the day that they felt particularly inspired by, but going away feeling different and wanting to make a change.
What about yourself, Annie?
Well, I think it'd very similar to what the girls have just said. It's that inspirational side of it that I think is going to be really important. But there's nothing like an event like this with a group of women who are gathered together out for, a great day out, like-minded women, having some fun, but with a purpose as well, and a purpose of, I'm here to hear all these stories, but also I'm here because I'm at maybe a bit of a crossroads in my life, and I'd like to do something. I'm not unhappy with my life, but I just feel that there's more ahead. And I think as well, from the letters that we've had, a lot of women are doing a lot of serious caring for family members, whether it's sons, daughters, older relatives. And I think there's a fair bit of sadness around as well in women's lives. A lot of women are very stoical. They just crack on with it. But it's hard, isn't it? It's very
and always
tough.
put themselves last.
And put themselves last. So I think it's a day when, it's your day. It's your day to come and, let us make you feel special and let us try and...
It is. I'm a great believer in the power of women supporting each other and the power of girlfriends. I love the fact that when we're together or when I'm with other girlfriends, we laugh, we cry, we're there for each other. And that's really what we're doing with Find Your Midlife Magic on October the 3rd. I don't know if I've mentioned the date yet. I might have just come along on a random day. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just have a joyful day, inspiring. It'll be a lot of fun, but we want to just be there for anyone that wants to come along, and hopefully lots of you will, and for each other as well. So
can't wait.
And in the beautiful setting of Goldsborough Hall with coffee, tea and lunches and all sorts thrown in as well. What's not to like? So thank you so much, all of you. It's been lovely to get together.
Great.
Thank
you as always. Thank you.
We're going off now for coffee and to make a few more plans. We've lots of organising to do.
3 months to go, girls.
It's 3 months
to go.
Thank you so much to Yorkshire Business Woman for letting us take over this podcast today. It's been absolutely wonderful. Thanks to Jill Laidler, whose idea it was, and thanks to This Is Distorted Studios here in Leeds. You've got a lovely studio here. We've almost felt like I was just in a living room. It's been wonderful. You can follow us on Instagram and on our Facebook page at Find Your Midlife Magic, and there'll be lots of further updates and bits about what we're planning for the day. We very much hope you can come along on the 3rd of October to Goldsborough Hall, and I think all the details will be linked to this podcast. But from me, Annie, Rachel and Bernadette, thank you and bye-bye for now.
Bye. Bye.
This is the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast. To join the Yorkshire Businesswoman network and find out more, visit our website yorkshirebusinesswoman.co.uk or find us on Instagram or LinkedIn. This podcast was produced by This Is Distorted.